Wanda, did you get those envelopes I gave you? The folder, Wanda. Hello.
Something before you know you paying $100 a month just for subscriptions. Just a USB-C.
Ready, Thomas? Thomas, you ready? Y'all ready? Y'all ready?
Yes, sir.
Thomas.
Well, I know. I got. Can I get my old? Especially because she had like the small.
Thomas, you ready? Sorry. At this time, I'd like to call the January 28th, 2026 work session to order. Ms. Watkins, would you do the roll call, please?
Mr. Evelyn?
Here.
Mr. Moyer?
Here.
Ms. Pearson?
Here.
Mr. Steers?
Here.
And Ms. Stewart?
Here.
Before we get to the agenda, I just wanted to briefly just comment on how the staff has worked hard all week. We have several county employees and being led by our chief OPET, who's in the audience today, and I just want to let him know how much we appreciate him monitoring this storm. We all work together. Mr. Lang is here with utilities, and you know we've all had a pretty tough week, but we got through it, and I think we'll wait and get ready for the next one. So, all right, the first thing on the agenda this morning is the 2025 Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response Safer Grant. Mr. Chief OPET. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good morning. It's that time of the year where within the next month, Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, will introduce the grant guidance for the SAFER, or which is the Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response grant that kind of I propose to every year. But obviously, before we write, we do want to get permission for you all, and I want to talk a little bit about that here. Obviously, you all know we have current few staffing deficiencies out there as we've been baby stepping the staffing throughout the county through the past many years. And we have 3 stations within the county, Quinton, Lenexa, and Eltham, that do not meet the minimum staffing, which gives us a high qualification right for this grant. Currently, we have 2 firefighters daily in Quinton, 2 at Lenexa, and 3 at Eltham. The national standard mandates a minimum of 4 firefighters per company, and that ensures a safe and effective interior attack through everything that we do, and that's what that mandate is through the NFPA 1710 standard. Currently, at those stations I mentioned, we do what's called cross-staffing. Cross-staffing is when a unit is dispatched, the remaining vehicle that's in there is left unstaffed. So if it's an EMS call, the fire truck's left unstaffed. If it's a fire truck or fire call, the EMS vehicle is left unstaffed, which creates obviously immediate coverage voids and delaying response to any simultaneous calls, which we're starting to see as we continue to grow. If we were to write this grant, given permission from you all, and we were awarded, that would allow for us to hiring of additional personnel to bring these units into compliance. And the number is 15. It's 15 personnel that would fill 2 at each station, includes that 1 extra at Eltham, so there'd be 15 total personnel to fill those gaps. The operational impact, that would eliminate cross-staffing limitations, ensuring an always-ready coverage for both fire and EMS units. And then obviously that would increase our efficiency and reduce our on-scene risk and a little more expediency as we move on into the calls. When we talk about fiscal implication, what does that look like for you all? So I took the guidance from last year's guidance, which is in year 1 is a 25% match. Year 2 is a 25% match, and year 3 is a 65% match. And then on that year 4 is when we take over completely. So in this case here, and these are estimates based on some numbers I ran with finance, the first year would be $341,250 plus about $75,000 in gears and uniform to get them up and on board. Year 2, again, $341,250. Year 3, $887,250, and then year 4 is when we take on the full gamut, which would be $1,365,000. So there is your financial impact, which I believe that falls into 27, 28, 29. I believe the FY 29-30 timeframe as for planning for budget time. So that's all I have to bring to you today is just, like I said, it takes an army to write this grant. The more advanced we have notice, the better it is for us to get a better grant out there. And just coming to you today with permission to write the grant, to move forward with that grant for 15 folks to have a really strong grant application. Any questions?
Thank you, Chief Opet. Any questions from the board members?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Chief Opet, when is the grant due?
Usually what happens is it comes out sometime in February, and then the grant is due in either late March or early April. Most likely it's going to be late March if it does hit in February. I'm not sure where they are releasing grants right now. It's been hit or miss.
Yeah, because last year it was due in July. So,
Yeah, correct.
And then it got extended to November, I believe.
Yeah, and usually they try to hit it where they award it within the fiscal year, the federal government. So September 30th, they're throwing all kind of things out the door with awards.
Right.
So.
And you've written this grant before, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So you're not starting from scratch
No.
to write it.
No.
So we're getting ready to go into the budget process.
Mm-hmm.
And I've kind of harped on this the last meeting also, but how do you feel about starting writing it now and then assessing the whole situation during the budget process?
Sure, I'm fine with it. My goal here today is the opportunity is coming up. I wanted to bring it before you. What I didn't want to happen was saying, hey, why didn't you bring this to? That's why
Sure.
I bring it to you all every year is, hey, here's an opportunity for us. And what I don't want to do is get behind the 8 ball to say, well, you didn't bring this to me. So
Sure.
that's what I'm doing.
Absolutely. I understand that completely. I just would like to be able to assess the whole county needs when we have all of our figures together. Thank you.
Ms. Stewart?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief Opet, how many vacancies do you have in the department currently?
Right now I have 2 vacancies.
And are they for what type of positions?
Firefighters.
Okay.
Mr. Moyer?
No, you say you have 2 vacancies, but you need more personnel.
Correct, for the staffing of the stations that I mentioned there, yes.
So actually, you have how many vacancies? You
Well,
have
they're not,
basically
the only
15.
vacancies I have are what's approved through the budget, and that's 2
Okay.
through folks who just left a few weeks ago.
But to fulfill your legal and liability exposure, you would have to have 2 more at those other stations. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Evelyn, do you have any comments?
I feel, honestly, I think we've done a lot for public safety over the last 4 or 5 years, and I think I told the sheriff and the chief after last year. I understand why he's coming, and I understand why the sheriff is coming, but county's been growing a lot, and we've done a lot for public safety over the last 4 or 5 years, and something I'm proud of. And I know, and I take my hat off to the sheriff, the chief, coming up fighting for their people. That's what everybody's supposed to do. But I think we need to step back and look at this budget because the county's growing. We need to look at the building department. We need to look at public utilities. We need to look at the commissioners, the treasurer's office. We need to take a big whole picture during this budget process. I'm not going to say it's a tough budget year because I get tired of every year everybody says it's a tough budget year. We're in a lot better shape than a lot of localities. But maybe we need to hire 4 or 5 firefighters in this budget process to start with 1 fire station, to get that one filled at a time instead of 15, taking that big bite. I'm just concerned with what the sheriff's requesting, what the chief's requesting. So you're looking at $3.5–4 million in 3 years that you're going to put on another board. And that's 4 or 5 cents on a tax increase, not counting courthouse, school, building, and everything else. I mean, so we're already going to put ourselves in a hole in 3 or 4 years, and we know that. So I just think we need to hold off here a little bit, look at this budget process, just do a little baby steps maybe during this process. Let's look at the call volume, at what your stations are, look at the call volume on the sheriff's department, and see where we can fix some of these gaps during the budget process as a whole this year. So I would like to probably defer. I would waste everybody's time writing this grant unless, I'm 1 of 5, but that's just my opinion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Evelyn. Chief Opet, how would this affect the ISO rating for the county?
I think once the staffing would get in, we would have to go through another assessment, and then they would have to re-rate us. So do I think it would be any better than where we are right now? It might be a point or 2. I don't know what that does to the community's insurance rates at this point because of the way they operate, but it could help by a point.
Well, I've always thought that that's the way the citizens get their money back is reduced insurance costs.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, I do have a question. Is it 15 or it has to be 15?
12 or 15? Nope. It will have to be 15. And the reason being is when you put in these grants, they want you to have the most, to be what they call a high priority grant. They want you to be fully compliant is what they want. So that's why if I would say 4, it's not even going to get into that next step. They want those high priorities, how it's going to fix the system. And that's my experience of writing those in the past.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So if you wouldn't do the SAFER grant, that means you just hire these people, these firefighters, to fill out these numbers on your own then? To have the 2 extra in those 3?
Yeah. So for instance, it would be, if we say we wanted to say Quentin, we'll take Quentin, right? If we wanted to fill those out, that's 6 positions. So if the board chooses to do that within their budget, it would be 6 positions there. It would be another 6 positions in Lenexa, and then those last 3 would be to fill the Eltham spot.
Any other questions?
I mean, I'm fine with you going ahead with the process, but with the caveat that, I mean, how do you feel about that, starting the process if it doesn't go through during the budget process? Like I said, you've done these grants before, so it's not like you're starting from scratch with them. We have a budget retreat in March. I think we could assess this situation a little bit holistically.
I have no issues of preempting that whatsoever and getting it ready into the portal. It's just when the due date is, that's all. And the guidance has not come out yet for when that due date is. So if that due date is before that March period, then there's the challenge. But if it's after that, then not an issue whatsoever.
And how long have we been out of these standards?
I've been here for 14 years, ma'am,
That's
and
right.
we've been out of standards since day one.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Chief, am I correct though, but when you submit that, I mean, this board is pretty much, we need to be on board that, three of us need to support that because you do not want to submit that. And then, because we found ourselves before you were here and we turned it down after we were submitted that. So the board,
I wouldn't say submit it. I would say
No. We would put
prepare
it into the portal and we would wait for this board to say, go ahead and launch it.
yeah, I just want to be clear on that. The board, if he submits it, the board needs to have support to.
Right. The board does have the option, like Mr. Evelyn has said, that if we were awarded to turn it down, but that is pure.
We did that and we got a lot of mud on our face years ago.
We did. Yeah.
So I just want to make that point clear.
So, Mr. Chair, I do have another question. I'm sorry.
Yes.
You said this is a federal grant through the Federal Department of Homeland Security.
Yes.
Okay. I would just opine that I'm not concerned with the March timeline, given what's happening in the federal government right now. So that's what I will share. And I also, agree with some of the points Mr. Evelyn made. I would like to have some more information on call volume, the types of calls, to look at it just a little bit greater, because I know that we have a need. Obviously, Lenexa, I drive past there every day and see the two folks there, and I wave to them and smell their delicious dinner. But 15 people is a big pill to swallow that I don't know if we're ready to swallow at this time. So for me to be in support of moving forward with the grant, I think I would have to see some more information about what the last years looked like, especially with the impact of the speed cameras, hopefully lessening call volume with less accidents, those type of things. So that's currently where I'm at, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart.
Mr. Chair, just
Yes.
one more question. I mean, you can prepare the grant and not put it on the portal at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, so.
Well, to prepare the grant, it has to be prepared into the portal.
But you can write it up. You can copy and paste, right?
You can. The issue with their portal, again, to her point, it's a system that is not very user-friendly. To get from point A to point B, you have to put something in there. So it would be a draft. You don't have to submit it. It's just a draft is really what it is. So yes, to both of your questions.
Any other discussions? I will entertain a motion if there is one.
I say, Mr. Chair, we don't need a motion to take no action, right? We can just.
Okay. All right, so we'll just defer it for now, okay?
Understood. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chief. Next on the agenda is the proposed fiscal year 2027 to 31 capital improvement plan. Mr. Rodney Hathaway, County Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. This morning will be a brief summary of what's been recommended by the Planning Commission at their last meeting. in January. You should have received your CIP booklet by now. And the booklets consist of 3 sections mainly. One is a table of all of the county capital projects. The second is a table showing all the public utility capital projects. And then we've included after that the actual request forms that were submitted by each department, showing the details on the capital projects and the justifications for those projects. Our capital improvement plan is a 5-year planning document, 5 years and beyond. This is essential in helping us not only project next year's expenditures, but it helps us predict future expenditures as well. The Code of Virginia gives the board authority to allow the Planning Commission to review the proposed capital improvement plan and make a recommendation to you, and that is a process that we've used. What is a capital expenditure? It is facilities, equipment, or services valued at $25,000 or greater, with an expected lifespan of 5 years or more. We also include scheduled replacement of vehicles and computers in our capital improvement plan. The total FY27, FY31 CIP is for county projects. The total is $253,825,548. Dialing that down to look at just FY27 projects, that total is $152,790,754. Dialing that number down a little further to look at impacts to our capital fund balance, that total is $7,546,764. The $152 million number, that includes projects that we would have to borrow for, so that comes from our debt service, not our capital fund balance, so that's excluded from the capital fund balance. There's also grants that are not included, as well as proffers that are not included in that capital fund balance number. And also, there's several projects that's proposed to be funded with our Colonial Downs reserves, and those projects are not included in the capital fund balance number. Looking at our public utilities, CIP, the FY27 total is $16,395,000. That number is changing because we've recently received some bids on projects planned for next fiscal year, and in the next discussion, we'll go over that in more detail. But the impact to the public utility fund balance would be approximately $395,000. Now, the total 5-year budget for public utilities would be $53,760,000. Looking at each project real quickly, and this is the same breakdown that's in your booklet, so I won't spend much time on it, but you see that we have projects for the airport totaling $405,000, consisting of obstruction removal. This is basically the county acquiring easements on properties adjacent to the airport so that we can go in and clear and remove some trees that could be obstructions to the takeoff and landing at the airport. This is required by the Federal Aviation Commission and the Department of Aviation as well. Rotating beacon rehabilitation, another requirement. That beacon is in need of repair, $30,956, and terminal and hangar roof repair, totaling $25,000. And this is really just normal maintenance, what we do on a regular basis. Administration, we do have the new courthouse project included, shown here. You can see that there's zero impact to capital fund balance, as it is anticipated that we would borrow for this project. Originally, what went before the Planning Commission was the New Kent Trust Fund, a recommendation of the Housing Advisory Committee that you've received at your previous meeting. I have backed that number out to 500,000, not because I'm not recommending that we move forward with this project, but I would like and the Housing Advisory Committee is currently working on developing a detailed program for the use of that funding. And at that time, when that program is complete, then we will come back to you. If this project moves forward, it will have zero impact on our capital fund budget. It is proposed currently that this would be funded through Colonial Downs revenues, which is another line item. CVTA, several projects being anticipated for next fiscal year. One is the permanent roundabout at 155, and that 350,000 really is just for the streetscape. We've received state funding for the actual construction, but this is a very visible area in the county, and there is additional landscaping, lighting, and streetscape improvements that we would like to see there. Zero impact on capital fund budget. This would be paid for through the Central Virginia Transportation Fund. The interchange at I-64 exit 211, the $2.5 million is what is anticipated to be spent for next fiscal year for the construction of the divergent diamond. Our total commitment is $10 million on our capital fund balance, and that's probably a new number because previously during discussions on this project, we've discussed the county committing $20 million. We've recently been made aware of that we've gotten an additional $10 million from the Central Virginia Transportation, which reduces the county's commitment to this project. And $2 million is anticipated as our match for the roundabout project at Dispatch Road and 249, which we see moving forward next fiscal year, a project that is truly needed in the county. Economic development. We are running a little low on our Small Business Economic Development Incentive Fund. I could tell you our Economic Development Department is probably as busy right now as they have ever been. A lot of projects in the hopper, which is great. I'm proposing that we contribute $50,000 to the Business Incentive Program. Economic sponsorship. This is our two major races that we have sponsored previously, and this will carry us for the fall of this year and the spring Virginia Derby for next year. And we are looking at a proposed expansion to the Visitors and Commerce Center. I know many of you, all of you, have been in the boardroom at the conference room, and it's pretty tight in that facility, especially when we're meeting with project prospects and they're bringing their development teams, their engineers and staff, and we have our staff. It's a packed room, and we could definitely use more room in that facility. And we're at capacity at that facility. If there's ever any future expansion of staff, we can't do it because we have nowhere to put them in that building. And I don't know if you've all seen the extremely small space. I think it's a 10 by 10 room that the Chamber of Commerce is currently using as well. And that $30,000 is just for design. Fire and rescue. Fire station number 2, new construction is planned for next fiscal year, and those funds have been included in the CIP. Again, this is a project that we would potentially borrow for, although we have some options that we'll discuss with you later on throughout the budget process. But right now, we have it as a borrowing with zero impact to our capital fund balance. Also, we have the purchase of support apparatus of $90,000. General services, county facility rehab projects, $80,000. And really, this is just general maintenance, the replacements of HVAC systems, structural issues, security systems, just the day-to-day that our general services deal with. IT, it is time to upgrade our surveillance system. Next year, we will exceed our warranty for our existing cameras. That $450 will cover the new warranty and new equipment to replace our surveillance system, and this includes our entire complex, as well as off-site facilities too, such as the visitor centers and other areas we have cameras at. Parks and Rec Master Plan, they would like to hire a consultant. That cost consists of $40,000. It's a great time to do a master plan right now, since we've completed the county strategic plan, we've completed the comp plan, and now it's time to fine-tune those results into looking at future needs for parks and recreation and future opportunities as well. Community development, purchase of development rights programs and affordable housing. This amount are proffers that we've currently received. It's no real new expenditures. Therefore, you'll see zero impact to capital fund balance. This money is just proffers that's been received by the farms of New Kent. The school board has requested funding, capital funds for various projects. For bus replacements. I know it's a big number, but school buses, that number is increasing every year. I think when I first became county administrator, the cost of a school bus was about $80,000. That number is about $150 now, in excess of $150 now. New Kent High School roof replacement. This should be the last phase of the roof replacement project. You've seen this on CIPs for the last 3 years, and this should cover the roof at the New Kent High School. One-for-one initiative, that is the Chromebooks that our middle school and high school students get. This is the annual cost for those. District-wide paving. The school have identified several school properties that are in need of paving, which will be accomplished during the summer. HVAC maintenance, which is an ongoing issue. The schools have a lot of HVAC systems that they are required to maintain. $150,000 is requested there. New Kent Elementary School replacement, new construction. I know this is a project that we are still considering, but for planning and budgeting purposes, I have included this cost, this request in our budget. As you can see, zero impact to capital fund balance. It is a project that we would borrow for. New Kent High School rooftop HVAC replacements. There are 2 units that are at the end of their life and that are in need of replacement. And the school wants to put the HVAC units in a schedule so they're not replacing all of them at one time. So 2 are proposed for next fiscal year. Same with the water source heat pumps. They're requesting $117,000 for replacement of those as well. General roof maintenance, $35,000. The schools have a lot of flat roofs that they have to maintain. This is just general maintenance for all of their schools. School vehicles, 1 car, 1 van. School improvement, equipment and painting. This is primarily painting during the summer when schools are closed, which is really their normal request. Furniture replacement, George Watkins fan coil units of $415,506. This is an item that we could potentially be coming, and I'm looking, is this the item that they want to move forward on? That is the switchgear, okay. Fan coil units, this is replacement of that with their HVAC system. It's at capacity, and they are in need of doing this and want to do it next fiscal year before they have a failure and it becomes an issue with operations. Athletic facility, phase 2. Phase 1 was the replacement of the new fields. They are asking to do some additional facilities on the football field, bathrooms and concession stands and locker rooms, which they've estimated to be $3.5 million. And actually, this is a typo this is actually a typo because if this project moves forward, I anticipate that it would not be an impact on capital fund balance. If it moves forward, it would be a debt service project. Practice field upgrades. These are the practice fields behind New Kent High School that are in need of some new equipment and some additional grading as well. New Kent Middle School gymnasium upgrades. Last fiscal year, they upgraded the gymnasium at the high school, and they would like to do the same next fiscal year with the middle school, which basically consisted of lighting upgrades, replacement of the backboards, and I believe the sound system was included in that too. IT infrastructure, $160,000 for new equipment, primarily servers, and the elementary school playground equipment is in need of being replaced. The Sheriff's Office, Axon body-worn camera renewal. We have a 5-year warranty on all of the body cameras that our deputies wear. That warranty expires next fiscal year. This is for the replacement of that equipment.
Mr. Hathaway.
Yes.
On that previous screen,
yes.
With the playground equipment, what elementary school is that?
New Kent Elementary School is my understanding.
The one they want to replace.
But I will confirm that with you because I don't have the booklet in front of me, but I believe it's New Kent Elementary School from discussions with the schools.
Thanks.
Okay. $560,000 for the replacement of the Sheriff's Office CAD system. This is the software system that is used in dispatch. Also proposed the 911 dispatch system. The sheriff recently informed me that they've received a $200,000 grant to upgrade the current 911 Vesta dispatch system. Total cost of the upgrade is $274,000. With the $200,000 grant, the county's commitment would be $74,769. And then the tasers, just like the cameras, they are on a 5-year renewal program that's consistent with the warranty that we have on that equipment. Voter registration. We have in here we went back and forth whether to put it in here or Parks and Rec. We put this in the voter registrar's request, and this is for the construction of a community center at Warnock Nature Trail. You've currently set aside $1 million. We've done some preliminary site work at the Warnock Trail. We do believe that it is a good site to accommodate a community center, but we do project that an additional 1.5 would be needed to construct the community center. $0 is proposed for capital fund balance. This is a project that could be funded through our Colonial Downs revenue fund. Public utilities, won't go over this in a lot of detail because we're going to discuss these projects in the next topic. But as I stated earlier, total is $16 million. Total impact of fund balance is $395,000. The difference is what we would anticipate borrowing, and we're going to talk about some borrowing options next. And last slide, I'll close on just our CIP process along with our budget process. The Planning Commission conducted their public hearing this month. They've recommended the projects that I've presented today. The Board of Supervisors presentation, which is this meeting. The CIP will be part of the budget recommendation, which will be formally presented to you March 9th. We will have a work session planned for the following Friday, March 13th, where we will go into more details. Public hearing is projected to be by March 11th. I mean, could be May 11th. There could be opportunities to do it at the April meeting, but our projection right now is that we would do our public hearing May 11th. By code, we have to wait, I believe, 10 days before we adopt the budget. Our next meeting is the May work session, May 26th, for consideration and adoption. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Any of the board members have any comments?
I just have a couple of questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Did anyone, I know you guys had your binders, is that the elementary school playground equipment?
I haven't found it.
Okay. Because I also had that question, because it doesn't make sense to replace playground equipment if we're going to replace the school. And then secondly, for the Parks and Rec master plan, have they done any, and this might be a premature question, but have they consulted Plan RVA or any of our organizations that have the on-call consulting bench? Because we already pay for that membership into that organization. So we might have options there that are potentially less than $40,000. And then for the Sheriff Bailey. So if you would ask Ms. Turner if they've talked to them, or if you know, because I think that could be good. And then my other question is about the dispatch upgrade. Does this have anything to do with our past experiences with our 911 line going down? Would this create any improvements there, or is that still an issue or unrelated?
It's my understanding that this will not impact the source of our previous outages, because that's not a software issue. That is an infrastructure issue. And I'll let the sheriff explain.
So this is just upgrade to equipment.
Software.
Software only. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Hathaway, could you go back to the airport expenditures?
Yes.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but that's all right. No. that. Now, are those expenditures paid for by the county, or do we get reimbursements from the FAA and federal government, state, and all that?
Both. As you'll see in the recommended budget, that is the cost of those expenditures, but the fund balance requirement shows only the county's share
Okay.
of what we would be responsible for.
So out of the 405, the county would pay 22, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, sir. And then on the surveillance camera cost,
Yes.
how many cameras do we have?
Oh,
$450,000 for cameras, and believe me, I've been in photography a long time, and I can't imagine spending $450,000 on cameras.
we have hundreds. I mean, we have a lot of cameras. I know. I thought Jonathan was here. Mike's here today. He could probably tell you the exact number. But just in this building alone, there's probably 50 cameras easily. When you look at what's outside, monitoring the parking lot, what's in departments, what's in the hallways. I can give you the specific number.
Okay.
But,
And do you know where the county purchases these from?
Security 101 is our vendor. They're a state contractor.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Uh-huh.
All right, are there any other questions for Mr. Hathaway? Thank you, Mr. Hathaway.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Everybody okay? Next on the agenda is the Public Utility Capital Projects Financing Discussion with Mike Lang, Public Utilities Director. Thank you, Mr. Lang.
Good morning, and thank you for your time. A couple of weeks ago, the county opened bids for 3 water supply projects or water projects that we have been discussing for quite some time now. We received very competitive bids, and we have reviewed the bids through our engineer and confirmed that the low bid is a responsible and responsive bid. On the Brickshire tank, we had a bid of $7,965,000 from Landmark Structures. Landmark Structures constructed the Farms of New Kent tank, and we are very happy with the quality of that work. On the associated water line for that tank, $1,594,649 from Walter Via Enterprises out of West Point, or Mattaponi to be specific. And on the Route 249 water line, $4,346,774, also with Walter Via Enterprises. All of these bids are within the budget that we had proposed with our FY27 CIP requests. And at this time, I recommend we move forward with all 3 projects. These are not only critical to realizing the future that New Kent has envisioned and laid out in the comprehensive plan, but these are really critical projects for maintaining a resilient and reliable water system for the current customers. And when I say resilient and reliable, I'm talking about situations like we had this weekend, where we have regional events that could result in regional power outages that sap resources from all over our region. That's rental generators, contractors that can respond to these emergencies. When the chips are down, New Kent is usually the last one to get service. So bringing these projects online ensures that we don't have a water crisis like Richmond experienced just a year ago. So I want to make sure we got learn the correct lesson from that experience. Everyone else was out of water. New Kent made $8,000 or $10,000, but don't let that be the takeaway. The takeaway was we dodged a bullet. We are self-sufficient, and we need to maintain that resiliency on our own. These projects also improve water quality, fluoride levels in the Brickshire area. We're looking at providing some current well customers on Route 249 who have shallow wells that are subject to drying up and contamination, getting them on the system. Those agreements are already signed. We talked about reliability for both the Farms of New Kent and the Bottoms Bridge system. And then we would have, if we don't move forward, there are some stranded assets and some funds that are invested that would not be productive. We've invested almost $2 million in Route 249 waterline between surveying, environmental, a flow control valve at the Bottoms Bridge tank, easements, design. All those things are already invested, and we would not, obviously cannot recoup those costs. And again, to hit on Mr. Sears' point, these projects increase fire flow for these areas and subdivisions. So I strongly recommend moving forward at this time. Any delays is only going to result in increased construction costs, additional engineering costs, and permit expirations that will, again, result in additional costs. We had previously presented some ideas to increase revenue based on your feedback and Mr. Hathaway's feedback. I'm going to bring Ted to the table to discuss how we're going to finance these projects.
Yeah, and I may ask Ben, or I will ask Ben to come as well. Good morning. I think you've already got the booklet. We're not going to go through this entire thing. Summary at the front. This is very similar to what we presented to y'all back in August, September timeframe when we were last talking about potentially moving forward with a borrowing. And at that meeting, the discussion was, do we have reserves that will carry us another roughly 6 months? The answer was yes, thinking maybe we could get to a spring of 26 borrowing for utilities, which is kind of where we are. And I think that's going to be one of the key takeaways is based on this presentation and what Mike has shared, are we at a place where we need to make some decisions about doing a specific borrowing? So let me jump in and please ask questions along the way. The page number's in the bottom right corner, page 2. Just a quick reminder, and you'll see the details here. We have about $22 million of projects that we're calling carry forwards. These are projects that have been approved. Some of them are under contract. Some of them are under construction. Work in progress, I guess, $22 million. Below that, reaffirming that we have just under $9 million available for the Parham Solids Handling Project. That $9 million was borrowed funds previously that are on hand available to be used for that project, leaving us about $13.4 million of additional funding needed to fully fund the carry forwards. That doesn't necessarily mean debt for the carry forwards, but funding, right? So carry forwards, call it $22 million. We've got 9 from a prior bond proceeds to fully fund the carry forwards that you'll see here in a moment, about $13.5 million. Mike has already mentioned the bids that came in for these 2 projects, Brickshire Tank, Route 249 Waterline. You're going to see when we get to discussing those projects, we're using $11 million for Brickshire and $6 million for Route 249 Waterline. Those are picking up design and engineering costs that have already been funded and some contingency maybe that might be part of the project. So we're just going to use round numbers of 11 and 6 million for those project costs. We're going to talk about the CIP in two chunks. Everything except the new potential water treatment plant project, and then everything including the Pamunkey water intake and water treatment plant. So with that and without it. And what we're talking about most likely, if you decide you want to move forward with a borrowing, that we would recommend we apply to the spring pool through VRA. Those applications, non-binding, but the applications are due on February 6th, and we'll talk a little bit about schedule at the end. If you go to page 3, on the left-hand side of the page is the total amount of the carry forwards, the $22 million by project. Certainly, if there are questions about any of these, Mike and Tripp can jump in and help. And then on the right-hand side of the page is the expected spending required for each project, heavily front-loaded in 26, about $15.5 million of it. Funding required in 26 and 6.7 million needed in 27 to, cash flow wise for the full 22 too. Questions on that? Okay. We'll go to page 4. Look across the top, right? Fiscal years starting with 26 and it goes out to 35. The first down through line 25 is what we're calling general utility projects. And you can see across line 25 over this entire period, we're at about $29 million of projects. We're color coding these, which will make sense when I go back up to the top. Economic development related utility projects are subtotaled on line 29. It's really 1 out there and 31, so it's a little over 9 million, but not a near-term need. You go down to the Pamunkey River intake, pipeline, and water treatment plant. That subtotal is on line 36. That is just under 160 million. So you've got 29 million, 9 million, and 160 million. Grand total of the CIP uses on line 38, we're talking about 198 million. We go back and add in the carry forwards on line 41, paid for from bond proceeds on hand. That's 8.9 plus the remaining funding for the carry forwards. The carry forwards aren't at the top of this chart, right? That's why we're adding them back in. So the carry forwards at 22.2. So you take the 198 plus the carry forwards. The grand total of this whole thing, line 45, is 220 million. But again, 160 of that is tied to that potential new water treatment plant. Up at the top, just color coding it so you can kind of see the incremental amount, right? What are we funding out of the remaining bond proceeds? The green is the other carry forwards plus the 2026 CIP. The sort of the tan is Brickshire, Brown, New Kent, Route 249, and so on. We get to the full 220. Okay? All right, so now we're going to get into page 5. How do we go about measuring the impact of doing this? And look at the left-hand side of 5, just a couple of things. We're using in our model, and there's a lot of detail in the back, actuals and audited numbers for 24 and 25, 26 budget, and so beyond in our projections, beyond 26 is projections. We are 27 and beyond. We're not including anything in here right now for a 27 budget. We're projecting off of the 26 budget. We call natural system growth, right? What's just new connections, new users. That's driving connection and availability fees as well as flow. We've got that on the right-hand side. That is informed by working with staff as to what they see in all the different pockets of the county, new connections to the system. And you'll see under column C there on the right, that is the growth in, revenues, right, tied to new customers, right? We're starting in 27 and we're going out to 35. That's the time frame of the CIP. So that growth in revenue, 6.49, 6.2, 5, so on. That is growth in your system revenues driven by new connections, which is informed by staff knowing where the likely build out of the system will be. In terms of operating expense growth, we worked with staff to come up with these projections. You'll see under column B, this is the expectation of operating expense growth, right? So, chemicals, salaries, utilities, personnel, etc. When we do a borrowing in our model, we're assuming a 5% interest rate. We're probably closer right now in the low 4s, so we got a little bit of cushion there. If it's not a water treatment plant project, we're doing a max of 20 years. If it's a water treatment plant project, when we run that scenario, we're actually going out 30 years. That's about the max that we would entertain for this capital program, 30 years. And we've got 26 borrowings and borrowings as needed, depending on the case. And you'll remember, and you'll see it, in any of these scenarios, a couple of things that we're doing. We're working within the confines of what the natural growth is expected to be in revenues, the expense growth. We're funding projects on the years needed under these debt assumptions. We're using cash wherever possible, provided we stay within our cash policy, and we're meeting that 1.15 times coverage, right? So all of those things are coming together, and the net effect of this whole exercise is what amount of additional revenue growth do we need to make that work? That's what it all kind of comes down to, which means, what do you all need to be doing in budgets when you're considering utility rates and charges? On the right-hand side, I also want to note, right, that chart, operating expense growth, that's informed by our work with staff. Natural system growth, new customers, we work with that with staff. Connection availability fees as well. Looking at the system, what developments have room for new users, new build out, what agreements are in place about who's paying, connection and availability fees. Not every development is exactly the same. So this is not just kind of a guess. I guess I would call it an informed projection of what we think could happen in all of these different pockets of the county where growth could be continued. Okay, so the setup on the book, and this should look familiar on page 6, we've run 5 scenarios across the top, starting with, call it the absolute minimum, and going to scenario 5, which is funding the entire CIP. So scenario 1 is just the carry forwards and the 26 CIP that's not in the carry forwards. And as you go down, you'll see that is approximately $24.3 million, right? Now, that doesn't mean that's how much debt we're issuing. That's the projects we're funding in that case, $24.3 million. Scenario 2, we're adding Brickshire at 11. That's a total CIP or projects funded of $35 million. Again, not the amount of debt, but the funding. We get to 41, 61, and 220, right? So that's the progression from minimal to everything on the list. Within each scenario, we've got at the very bottom, should say 3 in parentheses. It's 3 cases, all right? And the first case A is doing each scenario and being able to demonstrate that we maintain at least 50% of the utility cash, and that's measured as a percent of operating revenues, which is what your policy says today. Case B is doing the same thing, except the 50% is measured as a percent of operating expenses. That's actually a slightly lower number. It frees up a little bit of cash, and we've talked about it at pretty good detail, and I think we've introduced it here, and I think the thought is everybody's comfortable with recommending that we consider amending the policy from revenues to expenses. That could be something that you all could do unilaterally. You don't need outside approval to do that. It's your policy. We don't have any concerns about like Virginia Resources Authority or lenders having a concern. And it would, in the short term, it would, maybe over the entire term, free up a little bit of cash. And it seems like a very reasonable place to land in terms of the cash you're holding by virtue of the policy would be used to fund expenses, and it's a fairly common approach, and I think it's just a good refinement of the policy. But we've run it both ways so you can see the difference, and it's not a huge difference, but it's something I think ourselves and staff would recommend you consider. So we'll come back on what that means in a process, but we've run it both ways. We want 50% cash. It's just a question of is it as a percent of revenues or expenses.
And then finally, we ran a case where we, rather than for a 26 borrowing, whatever the amount is for the 26 borrowing, because that will vary, we're running that at 25 years rather than 20 years. Just trying to show you what adding 5 years to that one borrowing does. So in case A and B, the 26 borrowing is a 20-year debt. In case C, it's a 25-year debt. It certainly means adding 5 years. You're paying more interest over the life of the loan, but it's reducing the payment, and that helps a little bit in the early years in particular with rates. And as I said, in every case, we are able to demonstrate we're meeting our debt coverage and we're meeting our cash target. So, page 7, and then once we go through this, the next 4 or 5 pages will be very quick. This is scenario 1, and at the very top of the page, remember what scenario 1 is. It's just the carry forwards and the 26 CIP. So you look at scenario 1, and then we've got the 3 cases, right? So we're funding the same thing in every case, but the difference in the case is case A, we're meeting our cash as a 50% of revs. Case B is 50% of expenses. Case C is we do that one borrowing at 25 years rather than 20. So you go down the line, what are we funding, right? And on line 2, we've got the unspent bond proceeds, 8.9. That's it. That's in your fund. That's money you got. We've got system cash. We want to spend cash. We're not accumulating cash unnecessarily. We're spending cash provided we meet our cash target. So we're in the range of $8 to $9 million of cash that's being funded over the years. It's not all at once. The interconnectivity cash was another bucket of money you all had that you've set aside for years. We're including contribution of that. So you could say we're really funding $10 to $11 million of cash. There's a contribution from Henrico County that's unique, that's consistent across all cases, round up $1.5 million, and that is related to the sludge handling. Thank you. And then the line 6 is the resulting debt that would be required to do this case. And it's right in a pretty tight band of $2.5 to $3.5 million of debt. So if scenario 1 is the one that people gravitate towards, and remember, it's just the carry forwards and the 26, we've got all of these sources of funding, and we would need somewhere between $2.5 and $3.5 million of debt. Pretty nominal debt amount. And you can see in the middle of it, our parity coverage on line 11, we don't fall below 1.15. Our available cash, unrestricted cash, is $3.5 to $4.5 million. And line 13 and 14, however we choose to measure the cash, whether it's a percent of operating revenues or expenses, we don't fall below 50%. Okay, so that's all met. All of those metrics are met. Go to the bottom, beginning like on line 15. We're starting with 27. We're restating the operating expense growth that we covered earlier. Remember, that is a projection of what operating expenses will be. We're restating the natural growth of the system, revenue growth from new customers. And then we've got additional charges for service growth that would be required to make this work, kind of the proxy for rate increases. So in 2026, which is grayed out, y'all did 4%. That's baked into this analysis. 2027, the preliminary discussions with staff is 4% would be a minimum level to start at. And then what you see is beyond 27, depending on the case, we're anywhere from about 0.5% to 1% of additional revenue growth needed. So it's tied to a lot of stuff, right? How do operating expenses actually grow? The natural growth, the CIP projects coming in, meeting our coverage, maybe changing our policy to free up a little bit of cash, maybe doing a 25-year debt instead of 20. That's why when you go kind of from left to right, the additional revenue growth needed is a little lower because we're sort of giving a little more flexibility in case B than A, and then in case C compared to B.
questions on that, the next few slides are going to be set up exactly the same. The only difference is each scenario will start funding additional projects. So the decision that's evolving, obviously, is what do we want to do with a borrowing this spring, and understanding what that might mean for you all with rates and charges beginning in fiscal 27 budget. Okay? All right, so then we go to page 8. Same exact setup. We have incrementally added Brickshire at $11 million. So we're now funding across the board on line 9 like $35 million of projects. The prior page was about 24. So we're another 11 million is the number we're using for Brickshire. Line 6 is the debt. So we're going from what had been, 2.5 to 3.5. We're now getting in the 15 to 16 million, right, for this 2026 borrowing. All of our metrics are met, whether it's coverage or cash. And now what you see under the additional charges for services, we're getting to 5 to 7.3% revenue growth. Now, the simplest way to explain that is, on top of the operating expenses and the natural system growth, you got to raise rates to generate that revenue. But obviously, if you outperform, then maybe there's a little less pressure on rates. But everything has been calculated on an apples-to-apples basis. So in this case, we're getting above 4%, which is what we showed on the prior page as sort of the minimum level that was expected for 27 budget. Keep going. Page 9, we're adding Route 249. So now on line 6, our borrowing range is 21 to 23 million. We're funding a total on line 9 of about $41 million of projects. Again, carry forwards, 26 items that aren't in the carry forwards, Brickshire and Route 249. And now we're getting into, at a minimum under column C, call it 7 to 7.5% rate increases over the next 3 years, and then it steps down. Keep going. We're adding, now on page 10, we're adding all the other items on the CIP, 2027 and beyond, but there's no Pamunkey intake pipeline or water treatment plant. So it's anticipating more projects. It's not all those things aren't getting funded now. We're just building them in as projects that we will include in the model. Some of them will be cash funded, some will be debt funded. And as a result, you're going to see our debt size over on line 6 for this borrowing is very similar to the prior page. And then line 7, we're saying there'll be additional debt as well, whether it's 27, 28, 29, 30, and so on. So it's more debt because we're funding a larger universe of projects. We still hit all of our ratios and metrics in the middle of the slide, and at the bottom, it is requiring greater rate increases earlier than the prior cases. And again, our goal is to try to make this as smooth as possible in any given period of time to avoid sort of big spikes up and down in any given year or back-to-back years. And then sort of the full CIP at the 220 on line 6, the 26 borrowing we're talking about is not terribly different from the last couple of projects. Pretty darn close, 25 million. But you can see on line 7 and 8, significant amount of new debt that would be required in future years to do this full list of projects. All in 220 million. Metrics are met, but we are, solidly into the double digits of additional revenue growth needed on top of the system growth, natural system growth that we've discussed. And then my last slide, and certainly happy to take questions, is if you all are in a position where you want to move forward with a borrowing, and remember the bare minimum was like 2.5, 3 million, right? But that doesn't include Brickshire, Route 249. We could go through the VRA program. They need an application by February 6th. No problem doing that. Non-binding, no cost. VRA does their work. No concerns about them approving the county at this point for a loan, whether it's 2 or 20. If you wanted to do this, there would be a single meeting where you all would need to do a few things, and we've identified March 9th because these things need to be done by March 20th. So there would need to be a public hearing and a resolution. So that would be the meeting that would work for the VRA schedule. But because it's a public hearing and public hearing has to be advertised, we got to back up a little bit and say what number goes in that advertisement. And you might remember that from the last time. Like, we got to put a number in a notice of public hearing, which has to run roughly 2 weeks or so before the public hearing. So, March 9th is the deadline to make a decision, but the advertisement has to have a number in there, whether it's 5, 20, 30, whatever, wherever you land. It's just a not to exceed. So that notice of public hearing number isn't binding that you will borrow it, but it does establish the cap. Questions?
Any board members have any questions?
So, Mr. Chair, I have one question, and maybe for Mr. Hathaway. This utilities borrowing is totally separate from our other capital improvement borrowing, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that's
I just
correct.
wanted to make sure.
And I'll just add, just 100%, any utility borrowings are secured by the revenues of the water and sewer system. So that is what has to be adequate. Now, I will say, when you go through VRA, this is standard for them. They also have the ability, if those revenues aren't adequate, right, water and sewer revenues, VRA has the ability to intercept state funding. So, they do have another source of repayment in sort of that doomsday event, but never have they had to invoke it. And for as long as this system has been going, I don't think there has been any general fund support for utility, certainly for utility debt service, and I'm not even sure utility operations. We have worked really hard, you all have worked really hard to insulate the general fund from any financial support. But technically, if there's just no money in the utility fund to make the payment, VRA can grab these other dollars.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Couple things. One, we're talking the carryover, 22 million. We're basically saying we have 22 million that we need to pay. Things that we approved but didn't approve the money or didn't have the money to pay for it.
I'm going to say partially correct. Yes, some of that is funded via the borrowing for the sludge handling project.
Okay.
So there is money in the bank. 22 million is the total lot of projects.
So the one thing, as somebody that gets a water bill, I understand what these expenses are. Say you have a $300 water bill last year, which is every other month is $300. This year it's going to be $312 a month. Okay, if you go with scenario 3, the next year it's $343 a month, every other month, and then the next year it's $377 every other month. So this is the real dollars of what those big numbers look like. To me, I do have to know a couple things. One is Beach Springs connection fees and every that in this scenario.
Yes, sir.
Robbins Creek,
Yes, sir.
the Ryan development on 155.
Yes, sir. Eden Bridge.
Yeah.
The one that's not approved.
Oh, the one that's
They're all
approved.
approved.
The one that's approved. The one on 155. Not the donut hole. Isn't there another one that's Matt Stars on?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's approved,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So that's in these numbers too?
Yes, sir. They're water only, so you're
Right,
getting
I
the minimum
understand.
connection
I understand.
fees, that we charge.
So we have a good idea what our amount we will getting from AutoZone. Do we have any idea what the target will mean in a water bill?
Revenue from AutoZone, Target, any warehouse type facility.
Minimal.
Pretty
Okay.
minimal.
Okay.
Yeah,
I thought
because
maybe
it's
that.
just
Okay.
office that we're supplying, so.
Okay, very good.
Great from a maintaining future capacity standpoint, right?
Yeah.
But not great from a revenue standpoint.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
as our financial advisor, I assume future borrowing on anything else, any projects come up is going to be tight. I mean, you're putting worst case scenario, you're looking at 119% of increase if we go to in less than 10 years of your water bill. Economy tanks or anything else. As our financial advisor, what do you feel?
Well,
What do you suggest?
I guess
I know what I suggest, but I just want to hear what you have.
I guess part of that is page 4. Like to think, right? This is everything. Shouldn't be any surprises. Now that's easy to say. I mean, pump station breaks, but I mean you've got some of that in your budget, But this should be the universe, particularly the big dollar universe of all the capital.
Correct. And I would add that every time we review this with Davenport and finance and administration, something comes off the list. We can live without this if that's what we need to do to make these water projects happen. So we are committed to grinding this down to the bare minimum. Some of the things that you see on here, I think, have already been removed. Is the carbon control? Mr. Hathaway had $100,000 in his budget or his presentation for next year. We've already found a solution to get that job done with this year's funds, so that's already come off the list. There are other things we could defer, but these are the task we're given with CIPs is tell us what public utilities needs. These are the things we need. Now, if we have to refine and say, what does public utilities absolutely need? It's these water projects. I mean, we're going nowhere without these water infrastructure projects, and every year that we put them off, we increase the risk of having some sort of catastrophic water system failure. We do everything we can to prevent that, but sometimes, the weather and those things are against us. So I just want to emphasize these are projects they've been in our master plan for 10 years, and we've gotten to project 1A. So
How much
That
of
wasn't
these?
my answer.
I know it wasn't.
It wasn't an answer. But my premise was, if this is everything realistically we think that's out there, right?
Correct.
We don't know what you should do with your system.
When you
we don't know about Brickshire, and we don't want to make a decision. That's a good project. That's not a good project. I don't think that's our
Well, I
role.
just want to know if we're going to go broke or not.
Well, and if you all decide that these are projects that are important and you should pursue, these scenarios, we believe, are all very doable, but you've got to raise rates.
How much of these scenarios are dependent on new development? I know you got the figures there too. What happens? I know we're going to have some type of growth, but
Right.
how much pressure are you going to put on this board to approve 700-800 lot PUDs and stuff coming forward to make this work?
if you look at my prior recommendations, I was saying I was against the Matin rezoning. I just don't think we have the water for an unknown customer. So
The growth that's in here, though,
are projects that are approved and they're in the development process. I know that there are some pending potential development applications. Those are not included in the
Correct.
growth numbers that you have
Absolutely
before
correct.
you.
So that's why your numbers are so high, 16, 20%, if there is no growth. That's
that
going to go
is-
back to the end user that's going to have to come up with that to
Right.
to
That is,
sustain.
we're saying, look, every development that has been approved to happen, now it doesn't mean it will happen, right? The economy could slow and they'd say, I'm not ready to build. But we're not saying you're going to have to approve 500 new houses every year, right? That you haven't already approved. And if there is additional growth,
But I have heard that.
pardon?
I've heard that.
Yeah, from us.
No, maybe not. Yeah, I'm not saying who. but
Right.
to
No,
make
but
the
I mean,
system
no,
work.
absolutely. There are different ways to say, hey, what growth do we want to assume is going to happen? And I would say in this model, it's reasonably conservative, right? In that it's only accounting for developments that have been approved, and we're assuming they happen.
Absolutely correct.
If they don't happen, maybe some projects slow down, maybe not. And if they don't happen, then that would put more pressure on those percentages. So I think we can deliver on this for whatever scenario of projects you all determine. You wouldn't be being asked to approve every project on this at once. Obviously, you do this year by year. You set rates year by year, and we always have the opportunity to update and say, we overshot, undershot, projects come in higher. I mean, this will evolve. One thing I know is these percentages will change, but I think they are good assumptions that we can deliver on and continue to allow this system to operate and build out, I guess, and insulate the general fund from having to support it.
Mr. Lane, can you start, Mr. Chairman? Could you tell us what those bids were that you started the conversation off again? I'm sorry I missed them.
Yes, sir. The water tank, $7,965,000. Water line for that water tank, and you got to do them both. You can't do one or the other. $1,594,649, and then Route 249 water line, $4,346,774.
Mr. Chair, are any of those approved developments dependent on these projects?
To move forward?
Yeah,
No.
they'd have enough water, they'd have enough clear water
Under normal operating
Okay.
circumstances, yes, sir.
without any of these projects.
Yes, and already approved by Department of Health, Office of Drinking Water. So
As I go back to the numbers, and that person with a $300 water bill every 2 months, with the increase for the 11%, would be the equivalent of a 3-cent increase in regular taxes for a $300,000 house. So when we think about taxes and also rates, some of these people will be getting, if we have any kind of increase, we'll be getting both. That we have to remember this, okay?
I would also remind you that we've taken $1 million in revenue via the ad valorem tax that we have reduced to zero. So that was a big revenue loss.
The other question is that the stuff you've done, the project on 249, all that, the easements, all the surveying, all that, does that stay for another year?
Does it? We have some permits that will expire. So
Okay,
it'll have to be
okay,
re-permitted.
that's why I want to know.
But the
Yeah.
easements are in perpetuity.
Okay,
yes, sir.
okay.
Mike, to follow up on Mr. Moyer's question, if Robbins Creek moves forward, would that impact water pressure in the Berkshire if that new tank is not built?
So Robbins Creek would not be tied directly to the new tank. That's not dependent upon, but would be related to the Route 249 water line.
Okay.
But it also could move forward without the water line.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Bullock?
Chair, are we looking for a motion, Rodney, or something, or what?
With the schedule that's been presented to you and the requirement for a March 9th public hearing, we would have to send ads to the paper by February 13th, which is just a couple of weeks. Now, as Mr. Davenport mentioned, we could advertise worst case scenario and we could always drop down. But just wanted to make you aware of that time constraint.
If I may add to that, the bids are good for 60 days, so the bids would be expiring mid-March. So we were looking at coming to the February board meeting for approval of the contracts, if that's the direction we're going.
It says the application for VRA is due the 6th. So what would you be applying for if we haven't approved it?
We would be putting a provisional application in to meet the deadline that we might want to fund, pick a number, 20 million, but it can go away, or it could be reduced.
So non-binding.
Which is what we were doing in the fall.
Right.
I'd be happy to.
And I gather we don't anticipate if we did submit and we withdrew or not accepted that there would be any negative impacts. That's, I won't say common, but it happens.
I would, my opinion, the number I would put in would be that in the newspaper. I'm not saying this is what we should do. Just in the newspaper. Nothing more than that scenario 3, which is, which would be the tank, Brickshire, the carryover, and the 249. That's just my opinion. That would be a good idea in the paper, because we don't need people to see the 160 million. I know we're talking about it and people are watching it, but I don't think we have to have that kind of discussion about 160 million yet.
I totally agree with that, and we have some other options too that we'll be discussing with you. So.
Just bottom line, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Sorry.
go ahead.
So if we go ahead with this, what does that do to the rates for fiscal year 27? 4%?
If you look at page 9, which is the scenario that was just discussed, which is the carry forwards, Brickshire, and Route 249, right?
Mm-hmm. And what are the implications if we don't go ahead with those two projects?
Implications with regard to water services or financial? Well, as we've discussed, we are not, we won't be able to approve any additional development, certainly in the Brickshire Colonial Downs area. And we do have future pressure there with Aylesford and Eden Bridge, both of which are by right, more or less. And then, it's the redundancy and resiliency in emergency situations is certainly a big one for us.
Thank you. I just wanted that stated.
And, Mike, could you speak to what would be the implications if we didn't do the 249?
Well, again, that's a resiliency situation for Bottoms Bridge. You've got the trauma center there. You've got most of our fast food restaurants there. If again, we're in a state of emergency, those are the gas stations, those are the places, grocery stores, those are the places people need to go and need to get to. So if they don't have water, they're not operating.
The last time this was presented to us, there was a project that was said that could have been deferred. It's not either of these, though. Is that correct?
Well, the last time there was.
I thought it was 249.
Yeah. The last time there was discussion of the 249 project being deferred. I don't think this is a project that we cannot we have to do at some point. And we have to keep in mind that in 2036, the state is going to reduce our capacity in our groundwater permit. At that point, we're going to have to look at an additional water source, which will require that 249 project to move forward. So at some point, we got to do the 249 project.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Just to reaffirm, I think what Mr. Moyer suggested, that does not, if we do both of those projects in his suggestion, that doesn't mean we have to do both projects. This is kind of,
Just for the paper.
yeah, we can go back and just do one.
That's a not to exceed number
Right.
we would advertise.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this, and it's not because it's in my district, but Brickshire, I mean, I have numerous complaints from residents out there. Their water pressure drops every day, especially, when everybody's taking the showers and everything in the morning, and then a lot of times in the late afternoon when they're fixing dinner and stuff. So I think that's getting to a critical stage myself.
I agree, and we have to build to meet the peak demand, right? Right now, I mean, everything's pretty well in hand, assuming the power is on. But summertime, you got the rest areas, all of the interstate interchanges with fast food and gas stations and truck stops. You got the irrigation in Brickshire. You've got filling tankers to water the Colonial Downs racetrack, commercial irrigation. All of those things add up to, and unfortunately, it's Brickshire that feels the pinch, low water pressure because of the demand. So we've taken a few small steps in the operating system and the way we run the system to try and alleviate that. And I think we did get a little bit of relief at the end of last summer, but it was the end of the summer, so it was really hard to tell. We weren't getting that peak demand. And as the system grows, especially in Brickshire, where you're adding more irrigators, it's only going to get worse. So. And I would add to that, I want to help you get that water bill down, Mr. Moyer. $300 is way too high. I don't think you have like 5 kids at home. Or
No, I
I'm
don't.
not saying this is mine.
our minimum bill is about $127. So
200 is mine. Oh, that's a good average because I do have that.
irrigation.
I do have that irrigation
Is, irrigation is a big problem.
God helped out last year pretty much for me.
We rely on that revenue, but yeah, it stretches the capacity of the system. So,
Any other questions or comments?
I'll just wrap up by saying I'm happy to share my revenue projections for connection fees as well as operating. But as you can see on any page in the assumed growth chart, we are starting to dwindle. By 2035, we're down to 2.5% growth in the system, and that is because we don't have any more. We won't have any more developments to build. So,
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
One thing, Ms. White, could you, could you keep us informed on where we stack up with our water rate for our people that pay for it here, and also for anybody that's thinking about coming in? Where do we stack up? Are we in the middle? Are we high? Or
with regards to user rates and then
Yes.
connection fees,
I'll just go user rates. If somebody wants to come into the development, that's okay.
TRC engineering company that we used to utilize, they have an annual report on user rates throughout the Commonwealth, and we are just below average for all water systems and just a little bit more below average for small water systems. And you have to keep in mind, we are still a small water system, and we are actually 10 small water systems. So
The car wash person knows that you're a small water system.
yeah. So we have limited revenue sources.
Any other questions, comments? We appreciate all the information you guys
Thank
brought
you.
to us this morning, and if it's okay with you guys, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the nominations for Board of Equalization.
That's you.
District 1.
Mr. Chairman, I waiting to hear back from my appointee
Okay.
from last year.
Okay. Do we have one appointment from District 2?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I move to nominate Matt Starr for Circuit Court appointment as a member of the Board of Equalization to serve a term ending December 31st, 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Moyer.
Mr. Chair, I move to nominate Maylene Q for Circuit Court appointment as a member of the Board of Equalization to serve a term ending December 31st, 2026.
Thank you so much. I move to nominate Russell Byer for a Circuit Court appointment as a member of the Board of Equalization to serve a term ending December 31, 2026. District 5.
I move to nominate Lisa Remington for a Circuit Court appointment as a member of the Board of Equalization to serve a term ending December 31, 2026.
Thank you so much. Ms. Watkins, would you poll the members? You've changed.
Mr. Evelyn,
Aye.
Mr. Moyer,
Aye.
Ms. Pearson,
Aye.
Ms. Stewart,
Aye.
Mr. Steers.
Aye. Do we have any other business needs taken care of, Mr. Hathaway?
Yes, I actually received a call yesterday from the executive director of the Hampton Roads Alliance, who informed me that it's New Kent's turn to rotate onto their board of directors for a 2-year period. They do have a meeting next month. Board meeting next month. So the sooner the better we can make that appointment. We can get that information to the Hampton Roads Alliance. I know that Mr. Moyer has been very active in attending Hampton Road Alliance meetings. He's familiar with Doug and the current board. I'm not sure if he'd be interested or you would be interested in appointing someone else, but it is a 2-year appointment that would expire December 31st, 2027.
And where are the meetings held?
They rotate.
Okay.
The upcoming meeting in February is at the Virginia Peninsula College. I'm sorry, is that right? Yeah, I'm sorry. All the community colleges have changed their names. It's hard to keep track of it. But Virginia Peninsula College is there.
Norfolk and then Virginia.
Yep.
Mr. Moyer, you interested in
Yeah,
keeping
I'm
this?
interested. Yeah.
I think you'd be great for that. I really do.
Mr. Hathaway, or Mr. Chair, if I may, does Lindsay
Yes.
attend those also, Ms. Hurt?
Yes, Lindsay attend them. I attend them also when available. So yes, definitely staff participates in those meetings.
I'll make sure the staff come along.
And what's it called again? Hampton
It's
Road.
the Hampton Roads Alliance Board of Directors.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to appoint John Moyer as the board representative for the Hampton Roads Alliance.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson. Krista Utzi, would you please poll the members?
Mr. Moyer,
Aye.
Ms. Pearson,
Aye.
Ms. Stewart,
Aye.
Mr. Evelyn,
Aye.
Mr. Steers.
Aye. Any other business? All right, then now I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Hefty, our extinguished county attorney.
Yes, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, I'm going to give you a training session on the Freedom of Information Act, which
Would
is
this
a
be
requirement under state law that
me?
you guys receive training once every 2 years.
Okay, so if I, sir, excuse me, I'm sorry.
So the Virginia Freedom of Information Act is a state law that pretty much does two things. It guarantees citizens access to public records and citizens access to public meetings. So those are the two things I'm going to talk to you about. What does it mean to have access to public records, and what does it mean to have access to public meetings? We'll start with public records. What is a public record? A public record is anything that's created in a tangible medium, writing, recordings, that is involved with the transaction of public business. So anything that you create, any document or recording related to your work as an official doing business of the county is a public record. So that means emails, that means text messages, that means voicemails, that means any notes, anything that you physically create that makes a record that's related to your work at the county can be a public record. And the rule is the public has access to public records. You are not required to create a record. So if you have a conversation with somebody, that doesn't create anything, and you're not required to reproduce that. But to the extent you've sent it in an email or actually created it, then that is a record. It includes social media posts. One important distinction is that it doesn't matter the device, it matters the content. So the example I like to give is, it doesn't matter whether you're typing from a personal email account or a personal cell phone or your work cell phone. It matters the content. So if you're doing public business on a private email or a private cell phone, that is creating a public record. And by the same token, if you're doing a personal communication on a public email, then that is not the transaction of public business. So if you're, for example, saying to a spouse, please go get the groceries, this is what we want to cook for dinner tonight, and you sent it over your work email, that's not a public record. I mean, it's just not related to the transaction of public business. As I said, the rule is that if you have a public record, the public has the right to access it unless there's a specific exemption in the Freedom of Information Act which allows you to withhold it. Those exemptions are limited and narrowly construed. So the preference of FOIA is for the openness of records. So in other words, if there's an exemption that's close but not exactly on point, you really want to make sure it's exactly on point. The exemptions are optional, they're not mandatory. In other words, there are some provisions of the code that have to do with taxation. You're prohibited from releasing tax records, CPS and social services records. You're prohibited from releasing those. Under the Freedom of Information Act, the rule doesn't prohibit you from releasing stuff, but it does allow you certain exclusions to withhold releasing documents. Those exceptions include attorney-client privileged communications. They include personnel records, although the employee has a right to see their own personal records if they ask. And there is a limitation on the personnel exemption that you have to disclose the names and the titles and the salaries of all the employees at the county if you're asked. There are some various other exceptions relating to law enforcement investigations, CPS records, things of that nature. The law requires the county to have a FOIA officer designated, that is Mr. Hathaway. He is listed on the website as the primary point of contact. So citizens who have questions and want to make FOIA requests can direct that to Mr. Hathaway. It doesn't matter the reason for the FOIA request, and the FOIA request doesn't have to be in writing. They can make FOIA requests can be made verbally. Often it helps to encourage the requester to put it in writing so we know exactly what they're asking for and can be responsive. But technically it doesn't have to mention FOIA. It doesn't have to be in writing. They can just ask, and we have the obligation to try and provide that. The obligation under the Freedom of Information Act requires you to provide the records within 5 working days of the request. You can ask for a 7-day extension if the request is voluminous and you have to spend a lot of time doing it. And in your request, you have to either provide all of the records or indicate and cite the specific code section for those records that you're withholding. And you must release the unredacted part of any of those records that you are not entitled to withhold. Yes, Mr. Hathaway, question.
I'm sorry, quick question, because this came up last week. Are we required to give a summary of what's been redacted to the requester? So many pages have been redacted for this reason.
Yes, under certain circumstances, if you provide partial records and, let me check, Mr. Hathaway, to make sure when the requested records are being provided in part and withheld in part, such response shall identify with reasonable particularity the subject matter of withheld portions and cite the specific code. No, it's when you're withholding the entirety of the records, you have to identify the volume that you're withholding. So it's when you're withholding all of them, you have to say on some level an indication of I'm withholding 100 pages or this amount of records. So it's when you're withholding all of the records that you do have that responsibility to put an actual identifier for the size of the withholding. Yep.
Mr. Hathaway, are we allowed to charge for that?
Yes, sir. You are allowed to charge. So whenever someone makes a FOIA request, you're allowed to charge for the actual costs of responding. And if the amount of work would be above $200, you can require a deposit in advance. And the way it's supposed to work is you can ask when the person makes a request, you notify them that charges will be made and ask them if they want an estimate of the charges. And if they say yes, you provide an estimate, but they would be responsible. You have an obligation to try to provide those records at a reasonable cost. In other words, you can't take the highest paid person in the county and have them try to fiddle through the copiers. You know, you've got to try to do that at a reasonable cost. But yes, absolutely, you can charge, and typically, my understanding is the county does charge.
Okay.
You don't have to in every circumstance, but the law allows you to.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So that's a lot to talk about with public records, but that's the gist of what I want to tell you in a nutshell about public records. You know, if you create it, it's a public record. You have to disclose it unless there's an exemption, and you can charge for it. All right?
Thank you, Mr. Hefty. Does this complete our training?
No, you are not completely trained yet, Mr. Chair. You are halfway there. The next topic is public meetings. But this, again, should go pretty smoothly and pretty quickly. The law defines a public meeting as a gathering of 3 or more officials where you're discussing the transaction of public business. So one-on-one meetings among board members is fine, but if you get 3 people, together and you're talking about county business, you've created a meeting. And what happens when you create a meeting is that the public is supposed to be noticed and allowed to participate in the meeting. So meetings are open to the public, like we do here. We have to advertise on the website. We're supposed to give 3 days notice to the public ahead of any meeting that you guys schedule. You can have special meetings, but you also have an obligation to provide notice reasonable under the circumstances in advance. So anytime you have a meeting, you have to provide notice. That means no talking outside of one-on-one with supervisors. The rule applies to committees as well. Any committees you create have to be open to the public and advertised. And the rule for an official committee is that if you only have 2 members on the committee, then it can be possible that those 2 members do constitute the whole committee, and you would have to have a meeting published and advertised anytime those 2 members spoke about the business of the committee.
And does that also apply to emails?
That does apply to emails. So the rule on meetings is that you have to meet physically in person as the default rule. And what that means is you cannot meet virtually or electronically. There are some exceptions to that, as we witnessed in COVID. Obviously, when there's a state of emergency declared by the governor, there's some flexibility built in now into the code to allow virtual meetings. But aside from having an electronic policy, which is authorized by a state of emergency at the state level, you have to meet in person. One of the issues with emails is that if you get on a group chain email among the members of the board and you're responding to each other in real time, you run the risk of creating a electronic meeting. Right. So I always advise typically to avoid group chain emails among board members.
So like if Mr. Hathaway sends the board an email,
yes,
we can respond to him individually, but not as a group, so that everybody on that email sees your answer, right?
That would be what I would recommend.
That's what I thought.
Yes, sir.
It's like, like we've changed the meeting till 10 o'clock. I mean, today, that's not.
No, one email is not going to be a violation. It's really, where's the line when you're all sort of, it goes on and on and on and on and on.
Because most time, I don't, Mr. Hathaway doesn't send anything business-wise. I mean, just more information on stuff like today.
Yeah. It's just a good habit to try to avoid these ongoing conversations among group emails. But one group email certainly, I don't think, violates the electronic meeting. It's when they carry on and you then start doing it. And any decisions certainly have to be made in a public meeting. You can't make them over email. Good question. Meetings, like I said, have to be open to the public. You have to have a quorum physically to take any action. So that means a majority of the membership. So you have to have 3 at any meeting before you can take action. And all business has to be done in open session. So any official votes has to be taken in open session. You have to take minutes of the meeting. The minutes do not have to be a verbatim recount of the meeting. They can be summarized, which is what you do. And you can, one of the issues that comes up in public meetings is when can you go into closed session. The state law does allow you to go into closed session. It's for a limited number of reasons that are specifically identified in the Code of Virginia. You have to find a specific reason listed in 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia authorizing closed session. And in order to go into closed session, you have to have a motion identifying that code section in the particular subsection that authorizes it and stating the reason and the purpose for going into closed session. often some common reasons for going into closed session include purchase or sale of real property where negotiation in an open session would adversely affect your bargaining position, personnel matters, discussion with legal counsel, award or negotiation of a contract. Those are typical reasons that are authorized in the code to go into closed session. Once you're in closed session, you can only discuss the matter that was identified in the closed session. You can't talk about anything other than that which was identified in that motion. You can't take any official votes in closed session. You can take straw polls, but there is no official action taken in closed session. Once you've discussed in closed session whatever it is that you're discussing, you would have to come back out into open session before you could entertain an actual motion or any action for the record. The first thing you have to do when you come out of closed session, before you take any action, is to certify for the record that each member, in a roll call vote, only discussed, heard, or considered that which was identified in the motion to convene in closed session. We do that every time we go into closed session. We have a motion to go in, we identify the reason and the citation, and then when we come out, we have a certification that only those matters were heard, discussed, or considered. Meetings are anybody in the public can come and record meetings, yeah, I think that about sums up what I want to say about public meetings. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Anyone have any questions?
Very enlightening.
Last point, violations. Violations. This is where I leave you with. Remember to always comply with it, because there are civil penalties for a willful violation. If you destroy records or you go into closed session without naming the reason why, or you discuss things that you weren't supposed to discuss, anybody can file a civil action against you as well to order you to stop it or to correct it. And one of the consequences of that type of action is that if you're found in violation, you will have to pay attorney's fees. And attorney's fees are never cheap. So those end up being one of the biggest costs in the litigation involving FOIA violations are the attorney's fees that you have to pay, not the civil penalties per se, although those would be bad too, but the attorney's fees, if you're found in violation, can be significant. So as you do, continue to do, keep on the right side of FOIA. Any other questions? That's been my FOIA training for you all this morning. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Sefton. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, I got a couple things. One, I was really silent during the time when we switched dates for meetings, and it turns out I cannot make the February 24th work session.
We'll miss you.
That was really good. I can make the 17th, 18th, or 19th, if that is a possible change.
I will be out of town all those dates.
What was the date?
The date is 24th.
February?
Yes, and I'm out of town till the 6th of March. So,
jeez.
Yeah, I've already talked about this, not doing this again. But if that would be, Mr. Hathaway, do you think that would be a work session that if someone missed, it would be okay? Or are we having anything come up for a vote? Because if I can't make it, then you can't make it the week before, I'm sorry.
I'm out of town
I'd
the
rather have,
13th through the 22nd.
rather it be my fault.
Right now, I don't have any major pressing items for the February meeting.
Okay, Mr. Chair, if I could, I don't know if we do it earlier than that, it's the week of the Board of Supervisors meeting. You're gone all week?
13th through the 22nd, yes.
Okay.
Are you here the 23rd?
No. Am I okay, Rodney?
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. The other thing is that Caribbean. Oh,
That CTEC letter,
Yes.
has that been signed yet?
No,
Because-
we have it
Okay.
to sign.
I got a reminder from Mr. Sedell.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've already signed it. I laid it over there on Wanda's
Okay,
desk.
good, excellent, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes. Anything else? I do have one appointment that I need to make. I move to appoint Rick Opett as the Coordinator of Emergency Management pursuant to Code of Virginia, Section 44-146-19 as Coordinator of Emergency Services pursuant to County Code Chapter 30-162. Ms. Houston, would you poll the members, please?
Ms. Pearson,
Aye.
Ms. Stewart,
Aye.
Mr. Evelyn,
Aye.
Mr. Moyer,
aye.
Mr. Steers.
Aye. Is there any other business? I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Yes, that was.
Yeah.
Stewart.
Ms.
Ms.
Houston, would you?
Stewart,
Aye.
Mr. Evelyn,
Aye.
Mr. Moyer,
Aye.
Ms. Pearson,
Aye.
Mr. Steers.
Aye.